Hello there, I'm Nathan Gorton, CEO of Washington REALTORS, and I'm here with my friend,
Annie Fitzsimmons, Washington REALTORS legal hotline lawyer.
Thank you for watching this video today. You know, Annie, the last time we did a video like this, it was the most watched video in Washington REALTORS history, over 10,000 views.
And that's a credit to you, because I've done most of those videos over that history of time, and they haven't gotten that viewership. So thanks to you. I'm glad you're back.
Thank you. Well, I think that speaks to the knowledge that we were giving our members about the settlement, and certainly there were a lot of scary headlines out there. And Washington REALTORS believes that our role is to come to our members with factual information on how the settlement will affect their business in Washington state. And so we have a little bit more of that today, right?
And your good looks. All of that.
Sure, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so we've had a few questions since our last video about the settlement and what it means for our members' businesses here in Washington state. So let's try and answer some of those questions for our members who are watching this video.
Okay, and just to be clear, I get a lot of questions about practice issues, and we're going to cover those in hotline videos.
Yep.
So today is all about
liability.
And more importantly, the release of liability.
Correct. So this is good news for most.
I think it's all good news.
Okay, great. So, Annie, how are our members going to be covered by the settlement that NAR has secured?
So our members include individual real estate brokers who are Realtor members and their firms.
Yes.
Let's start with individual real estate brokers. Every Realtor member across the country, but let's just focus on our Realtor members in Washington state. Every Realtor member in Washington state who is an independent contractor with their firm, not an employee, but an independent contractor with their firm, is released from any potential liability in a lawsuit based on facts similar to the seller antitrust class action lawsuits that are percolating their way across our country. We've got over 30 copycat lawsuits at this point, and I know that more were being filed, to include some that were about to be filed in Washington.
Yep.
All of our brokers who are independent contractors and Realtor members are released from liability, with the exception of those who are licensed to Home Services of America or one of its affiliates.
Do you want to talk about that real quick and why that is?
Home Services of America is one of the named defendants in the seller antitrust lawsuit that actually went to trial in Missouri. That was the trial where the jury reached the $1.8 billion verdict. That was the jury trial that led NAR to the conclusion that settling all of these claims was in the best interest of NAR and its members. Home Services has not settled that lawsuit. I don't have any idea what's on the horizon for Home Services with respect to their defense of that lawsuit. And so because they are not part of the settling defendants in the NAR settlement, Home Services of America is not relieved of liability by the NAR settlement, and neither are the brokers licensed to Home Services or any of Home Services affiliates.
Okay. If I am a broker in Washington state and I am not an independent contractor affiliated with Home Services of America, do I need to do anything to secure that liability release?
You mean you are an independent contractor and you are a Realtor?
Yes.
In Washington state?
Yes.
You don't have to do anything to secure that liability so long as you are a Realtor on the date that the class notice is sent in the lawsuit.
So you need to be a member in good standing.
Right.
On that date.
Right.
We think that date is going to be in August.
Pretty sure that date's going to be in August. For sure that date is in 2024.
Okay. So as long as I am a member in good standing in 2024,
right,
I will be released from liability.
In the seller-based class action lawsuits, all of them that are percolating anywhere in the nation, including any that could be filed in the future in Washington state. So, Realtor in good standing, I'm gonna put this one on you.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean?
First, you have to be affiliated with a Realtor office.
Okay.
And then you also have to make sure that there are no fines outstanding, maybe through the code of ethics process, and of course
Against you personally.
against you personally,
Okay.
correct? And then have paid your 2024 Realtor dues.
Got it.
So if I am not a member in good standing at the settlement date, what does that mean?
If you're not an active Realtor, you're not protected by the settlement. You don't have a release of liability.
Okay.
So any of those lawsuits that could be filed in Washington in the future, or existing lawsuits naming brokers anywhere in the state, if you happen to be caught up as a defendant in any of those existing or future lawsuits, and you're not a Realtor member on the effective date, then you don't get the release of liability.
Some watching this may be leaders in their local associations or their local MLSs. So let's talk about the settlement and what it means for our local associations and local MLSs, our local Realtor-owned MLSs.
Okay.
So what about their liability?
I do want to talk about that. I also want to pick up one issue really fast. This
Yes.
is a question that's lingering about personal liability. You already asked me the question, is there anything else you have to do at the individual level? And I said no, but just to answer a question really fast, there are a handful of brokerages in our state, Realtor member real estate firms, not covered by the NAR settlement, because one of the carve-outs of the settlement, NAR has said many times over, they wish they could have gotten a blanket release for every
Yes.
Realtor out there, but the NAR settlement agreement is a result of negotiations, and they were negotiating with plaintiffs' lawyers on the other side of the negotiation table. And so a full release of all Realtors was not available. The highest earning franchises in the country are not automatically released based on the NAR settlement agreement. And there may still be a handful of firms in Washington state who fall under that carve-out, if you will, from the settlement agreement. But what's important about what Nathan and I said earlier is that even the brokers licensed to those firms, the Realtor members licensed to those firms who are independent contractors, even if your firm is not released from liability based on the NAR settlement, you still are, so long as you are an active Realtor member.
In good standing.
In good standing. We'll just say in 2024.
Yes. So let's look now at our local associations and our Realtor-owned MLSs.
Right. There is a step, again, full release of liability for
Great.
all of you, but there is a step that has to be taken with respect to, is it all of our local associations or just those with MLSs?
Just those with MLSs.
Okay, just those with MLSs. There is an addendum to the NAR settlement. It's widely available at this point.
Yes.
If you can't find it, send me an email on the legal hotline. And I'm talking to the leadership of the MLS, because this is not something every MLS member has to do. The MLS itself must sign this additional documentation provided through the NAR settlement agreement. And the deadline for signing that is in June of this year.
Yes.
I think is it June 13th?
I mean, I would just sign it by June 1st, but June 18th.
June 18th. I'm glad you could find that. I mean, you're signing a legally binding document. You're agreeing to terms and conditions of release. So you should review it with your MLS legal counsel.
And you should be doing that now.
And you should be doing that now, because there is a deadline for signing it. If you miss the deadline, then your MLS is not protected by the release of liability. And so, assuming that you want that release of liability, you want to sign this document timely, you ought to have it reviewed by your legal counsel before you do that. So get those steps underway right now.
We should also mention that there's actually a great timeline available for people who want to kind of nerd out on this a little bit, and that's available on facts.nar.realtor.
And it's an awesome website.
Yeah, yes, there's way more than just a timeline.
Yeah.
There are frequently asked questions.
A lot of frequently asked questions.
There are a number of videos on there. It's a fantastic website, and if you have any questions, I would urge you to go to facts.nar.realtor.
I don't know how many lawyers NAR has, more than half a dozen, and
Yes.
they are updating the FAQs daily,
All the
they
time.
say. Yeah,
Yes.
and so many lawyers have a hand in drafting these FAQs and keeping our members not only at a state level but nationally up to date. So please take advantage of that resource.
Well, I think that's it. I think we're here to give a little bit of good news and to explain the process. And again, as more facts come out on the settlement, as we can provide more thoughts on how the settlement impacts brokers in Washington state, we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Thank you for being a member.